So it seems that RFK is gonna drop his campaign this Friday and might be endorsing Trump. I was watching a podcast interview in the Impact Theory YouTube channel where his BP Nicole Nicole Shanahan was talking about their campaign, how the process, how their campaign was hurt by the Democratic Party, and talking about many other problems that the U.S. needs to address. Which I I was watching that interview and I tend to lean more libertarian than RFK, but boy, I mean, I definitely wanted RFK to have a better campaign. I was really hoping he will make it a bit far. Personally, I would love to see a third party candidate win because the control that the two party system has is it creating so many barriers to prevent other people to run for office, and it's always the same clowns getting paid money by the big corporations through lobbying and pretty much just corruption all around, and they have all the control. They create laws to prevent third parties from going in. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but since RFK didn't have an official party, he had to pay millions of dollars just to be on the ballot. And this happened after Ross Perot back in when was it, on the George W. Bush race, where a third party almost won the election. And looking back, the Democratic Party and probably the Republican as well, they're like, hey, look, we're gonna make it as difficult as possible for a third party to join. And that's pretty much what they're doing. And I'm gonna show you here a clip where she was talking about what is the plans and what is she's considering. Man, I watched this interview and I was like, all the key points that she was mentioning, they were important. I mean, of course, everyone's concerned about inflation, but I am concerned about the U.S. debt and the spending. Because all I see is Democrats talking about increasing taxes. I was like, increasing taxes and paying more money, and I'm like, dude, you're not fixing the problem that you're having is the spending. It's like you're up to here in credit card debt and thinking that, hey, if I get $5 here, $5 there, you're gonna solve the problem. No, you have a spending problem. You have a spending problem that needs to be addressed. And if all those organizations that are managing that money, they're not held accountable, how can you improve the system? So I'm gonna show you here a short clip where she's talking exactly about this.
There's we have this agency called the Government Accountability Office who is designed to track and audit this stuff, but they've never been properly looked at or empowered to produce the kind of reports that are honest. I'd imagine that if we put in, real auditors into the government, we'd see some pretty scathing reports about abuses of budgets. There's, let's just talk about military spending alone. We spend an enormous amount compared to any other nation on military, and these security agreements are if they actually produce security for the country, it'd be one thing, but right now they seem to be antagonizing our enemies.
Expanding here on the point that she's making, I think the U.S. has a huge problem with accountability. There's a problem with accountability where people in office, they're not held accountable for the mistakes, because when a Republican messes up, oh, the Democrats this. Oh, when a Democrat messes up, oh, no, the Republicans. Oh, the Republicans. Like, for example, when I saw Biden talking about the inflation and other stuff, I was like, dude, how can you have the audacity to say those things? And again, it's all about deflecting. It's all about deflecting. And the problem is the two party system, all it creates is it's like we're a sports team. For example, I don't know if any one of you follow European football, but it's like the biggest rivalry over there is Madrid versus Barcelona. And nobody will call out their own turf when they do their own doings. And this is what politics has become. And this is why I was really hopeful that RFK would have a chance, even though, hey, there's many things I don't agree with RFK. But I think proving to the two party system that somebody else can win, it would be a good thing. It would be a good thing for everyone because they need to be held accountable. The same way Biden was talking about, hey, we need to have term limits for the Supreme Court. Dude, you spent in office more than 30 years. What are you do? What are you talking about? It's like you don't organize your room and you're calling out your kid for not organizing your room. It starts with you. It starts with you saying, hey, look, let's implement something that way Congress, we have term limits. And then once you have term limits in Congress, then you can talk about term limits for everyone else. But look inward first. That's how you fix the problem. And man, hearing her talk, I was like very impressed with everything that she was saying and how honest she looked. I mean, she could be lying, true, but she seemed genuine. Personally, I can watch a full interview with Trump. I have tried many times and I don't know, man. I just can't get through it. But man, I was watching that interview and when I finished it, I was like, wow, it was only an hour? So I want to show you here another clip where she's talking about the decisions that they're making, all the problems that they're having with their campaign, and here is the clip.
The control of political financial coffers. So there's a few ways to go about this. One is, I mentioned Citizens United in the incorrect context, but I'm going to mention it here, is the corporations being able to buy politicians to change laws that either benefit them or restrict the growth of their competitors. This is a huge issue. If we eliminated corporations from being able to fund elections, we would see the whole regulatory framework change, because there wouldn't be this abuse anymore of government and regulation to get what we want, to play this game, to use the government as a form of controlling our competition. It's effectively what it is. It's why the big corporations end up seeming to just skip by while, competition becomes harder and harder to make profitable. Like, competition, like Rumble was a great example. Rumble just wasn't able to compete through a natural growth curve because Google was restricting its access in search results. So they weren't able to increase their exposure anywhere, even though they were covering topics that should have been indexed in search results. And why do they get away with that? Well, I think in part because Google is massively involved in the government, but we recently saw a court order that said Google couldn't do that and that it was antitrust, and now the FEC is looking at it. But will the FEC actually do the right thing? Probably not.
So, so in this part here, she's talking about the Google antitrust case that they lost, where Google was manipulating the search, and there's other issues with many antitrust companies, and this is for example, my issue that I have with traditional liberals, traditional Democrats. Where are the anti-war Democrats? Where are the anti-big company Democrats? How is Meta how was Facebook able to buy WhatsApp and Instagram? I can understand to a certain point Instagram, but why were they allowed to buy WhatsApp with all the issues that they have with security violation, privacy violation? Why? They're way too big. When you think about it, you open up your phone, you go to Instagram, you go to Facebook, you communicate through WhatsApp, especially people internationally. How can one company have control of most of the means of communication people have? That's way too big. And right now there's talks about they might be a case where might they might actually break up Google. And if if that happens, I mean, personally, I'm not sure of all the details, but I think the most important take about what she's talking about is the lobbying. The fact that companies are treated as people and they can lobby, have significant control over politicians. Because if you think about it, if certain company donates certain amount of money to a super PAC, so they can donate to a Democrat or a Republican, These people have a leverage. These people at a certain point, they're gonna knock on their door and be like, hey, remember the favor that I gave you? I need you to help me out with the competition, or I need you to help me out with this deal, or I need you to help me out with this what's it called? With this new change that we need to make. That way those bigger companies, they become stronger, crushing their opposition. And at the end, that's what crony capitalism is. Crony capitalism is when government gets involved with the corporate world. To a certain extent, they're always connected, but they cannot have so much control over our politicians, because then what happens is our politicians are not representing the people. They're representing their interests first, the party, then the people. And that's not a good system long term if we want to actually fix the United States. That's why I was hopeful they will actually give RFK a chance to debate. But of course, I knew they were not going to do it. So this is the last point that I wanted to show you guys here on this video.
It could, any, you can't predict the number of variables. But as long as we remain on the ballots, we could win. The question is, is the risk of a Harris Waltz presidency worth us staying in? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves right now is, one, do we trust Trump and in his personal sincerity to really do the right thing for our country and chronic disease, balance the budget, end these forever wars? Is he somebody that's going to continue to invite people like Bobby and I into the conversation? Or is he going to fall victim again to the things he fell victim to in his first administration? So we're weighting it all. It's not an easy calculation. We want what's best for this country first and foremost, and it is, it's an interesting place to be. I won't lie. Like you can't make this stuff up.
As somebody who understands that we're connected to something bigger, that spirituality and politics are intertwined, what does your gut tell you about how this is going to play out?
This election is so important, but so is the 2026 governor race in California. And my gut tells me that sometimes you need to go to the source of where all of this stuff is coming from. It's coming from right here in California. It's coming from the influence Silicon Valley and Hollywood has had on the Democratic Party. It comes from this idea that you can manipulate people with lies to get their votes. It comes from this lack of accountability that just seems to continue to spiral. And I think that what my gut tells me right now is that we just have to keep being honest. I got to just keep being honest. I got to keep focusing on what matters the most outside of party lines. I need to focus on a vision that goes beyond November. And if that means that we stay in, and, there's benefits to staying in. If we get over 5% of the vote, we actually establish ourselves as a party. 71% of Americans want a strong third party with a real shot at winning. There's even public funds available if we get over 5% of the vote. So we could get, I think it's like $13.5 million in public funds to keep the party going. And that's, that's worth something. That means that we can position for a real third party election in 2028 where we don't have to go around and spend tens of millions of dollars on ballot access, which means that we can spend all of that time and money campaigning. So, you know, there's two options that we're looking at. And one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz uh, presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump and we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision.
Mm,
Not easy.
clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
And this is the part that she was talking about, how she felt, how she's considering maybe endorsing Donald Trump. I mean, she didn't confirm anything, but she's definitely giving the hints. Or RFK mentioned that there's going to be an announcement made this Friday, which many of us believe that's exactly what he's going to talk about. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, you can definitely see at the end of the video the pain that she's. It's like when you work so hard for something and you feel that there were traps in place to prevent you from actually getting a shot. And this is what the duopoly has. The duopoly has significant control of the debates, how everything goes. The fact that the Libertarian Party cannot make it to the debates, it's ridiculous. Yes, they tell you, oh yeah, the United States have more than one part, more than two parties. BS. BS. They have two parties that they only get special privileges. The other parties cannot go to the debates, and that's the problem. They have to be able to go to the debates. But as long as people just keep going with the cult of the Republicans or Democrats, this was going to happen. Again, I was hoping for a better shot. As I mentioned, there's many issues and many things that I don't agree with RFK because RFK is more leaning, left leaning than myself. But it was a change. It was something different. It was something else that was not, especially Kamala Harris. I don't know if you guys saw the comments that Waltz was making about, oh, the free speech is not covered, which I'm going to make a video about that later on. It's these are radical leftists. These are radical leftists that are trying to portray as they are a centrist Democrat. They're not. They are not. And then people are like, how can you support Trump? I'm like, dude, you see the options that you're giving me? These are garbage options. These are garbage options that you're giving me. And of course, like the NPCs and the cheaps, they're all following along. In 1 week, they were saying, "Oh, the economy is doing great" when Biden was up, and then as soon as they presented Kamala, that they endorsed Kamala, oh yeah, Kamala is going to fix the economy. Which economy? You guys are in office. What are you talking about? And the fact that again, I work with many people like this. They all in line voting for the Democrat. I can understand they don't like Trump, and that's fair. But the fact that they're like, hey, look, you don't see that they clearly manipulated everything right in front of your face, similar to what they did to Bernie Sanders. And I don't know what to say, to be honest. It's just, I feel that at the end, people are just going to sit down. Hopefully, the independents can have, I don't know, maybe they can create a party where they actually have more control and they make the right decision this November. And we'll see how it goes. All right, that's it. I will wrap it up with this, guys. Have a good one.